Hi, I'm Anastasia Soukhov. I'm going to my second year of PhD studies at McMaster University, and I'm a mobilizing justice student. Today, I'll be talking about my PhD thesis topic, which is Canadian accessibility landscapes, homes, opportunities, and greenhouse gas emissions. I, like you, I imagine, dream of better accessibility landscapes. And for me, that is defined by sufficient access to opportunities, optimal trip-related greenhouse gas emissions, and the perception of needs being met. That last point is very relevant to mobilizing justice. So first, sufficient access to opportunities. So me, along with my co-authors, have been working on a way of potentially using accessibility measure to assess if an area has sufficient access to opportunities. And this is through spatial availability. So spatial availability is a competitive accessibility measure, so similar to Shen type measure, but we go about it in the calculation that we believe is more interpretable. So this is because it takes all the opportunities, every origin takes all the opportunities every single time you do the calculation, and you proportionally allocate it to each origin. This is a hypothetical example, so I'll just calculate spatial availability for this example, just as proof of concept. So imagine you have a suburban area, an urban area, and a satellite area, all within the CMA. The distance to the satellite area is very far, 100 meters to get there, and the suburban urban area is relatively close, 30 minutes to travel between. The triangles, the blue triangles are population centers, and the red circles are job centers, and getting between them is pretty quick, 15 minutes for the travel time. In terms of the composition of what's in the urban, rural, and satellite areas, you have in the suburban area, you have 100,000 jobs and 50,000 population, so more jobs than people. In the urban area, you have 100,000 jobs, the same amount of jobs as the suburban, but you have 150,000 population. And then the rural, you have 10,000 jobs, 10,000 people, a perfect amount of jobs to people, but it's very small and very far away. So let's see how spatial availability is calculated. So for the suburban area, the spatial availability is 66,833 spatial available jobs. This is larger than the amount of population that exists in this in the population center of A, which is the population center for the suburban area. You can see most of its jobs come from the job center that's nearby, so the 15-minute one, just the red dot, and then some come from the urban area, and also a little bit comes from the satellite area, despite it being so far away. In the urban area population center, it's the biggest population center. It's demanding the most jobs. So relatively, the population, it has a large population. And so most of the jobs are allocated from the nearby job center, and some are allocated from all the other areas, just like the suburban, but it is so this is similar to the suburban area, but it is a more demanding job center. So you can see that or population center. So you could see they have the same number of jobs available at the suburban area, has the same number of jobs available as the urban area, like both 100,000 jobs, but the population center for B is bigger than A. So it needs to also seek jobs elsewhere to satisfy its demand. For the rural now, it has 10,000 jobs and 10,000 people, and it's allocated almost the amount of jobs that it needs to satisfy its population. So 9,963. The job center, you could kind of consider it as at the satellite city, lost jobs from the suburban and the urban job grab, so to speak. So it has less jobs that can be given to the satellite area, and it gives no jobs from other areas are allocated. So we can also calculate just because the spatial availability value is exactly the number of jobs in the region, like it's important to note that the 66,000 the 133,000, and the 9,963 all sum up back to 2010, 210,000. And that's the number of opportunities that we start with that's in the system. So you can take this big number of spatially available jobs and just divide it by the number of population at each population center to get a score. If the score is above a 1, it is not. They need more time. They need more jobs, or they have enough jobs. They're sufficient. They could take jobs away technically. And if it's in an urban area, it's below 1, it's red there. They don't have enough jobs. But what's interesting is that the rural has enough jobs, and so does the suburban. But how those look could be very different. So that is the topic of my second question here on helping defining better accessibility landscapes. So I'm looking to apply spatial availability to estimate greenhouse gas emissions. So what is the distribution of emissions between and within communities? So the suburban area might have way more emissions than the rural area, but they both have a spatial availability score that's high. And then the next point here, the next aspect is trying to define what is sufficiency and what is enough in this equity lens. So there's some ongoing work of a literature review that's helping us define and scope what that could look like. So stay tuned for that presentation. And then I really hope to kind of combine these 3 standards and these 3 approaches into imagining what policy interventions could look like. So what could we do to create landscapes that do have better accessibility? So things like what type and how much of residential housing, of opportunity availability and improvements, and of transportation system improvements do we need to achieve like a better landscape? I know these are all dynamic systems, and we can measure something in the static and change something, it completely will change what the outlook looks, but at least visioning what it could look like is kind of the goal of my thesis. Part of a goal of my thesis. So again, thank you all for listening. You can email me here. I'm on Twitter and on LinkedIn, and check out Mobilizing Justice's website. There's always blogs and reports and things from students and the work that's just going on more broadly. So thanks all for listening.